What's up, people? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. So I'm super pumped because we're about to play with some gear, people. I'm going to talk about 3 different controllers, all under 300 bucks. I'll tell you what's good about them, what sucks about them, and at the end, which one is the best. So I'll do a lot of gear reviews, to be honest, but I gotta admit, I'm tired of these cotton soft ass YouTubers that I click on their video, right? They're comparing 2 different pieces of gear and, in the description, it's like, which one is best, whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. I'd like to know which one is best. I click it, I watch it. By the time it gets to the end, it's the same thing. So this one's good for its own reasons and this one's good for its own reasons. So they're both great. It depends on your personal preference. I can't stand that shit. Like, what do you mean? Tell me which one sucks. Tell me what's wrong with them. Like, did they sugarcoat everything? And I get it. It's because they're trying to sell them, right? You get sponsored or whatever happens. It's just like they don't want to trash a piece of equipment because then no one's going to buy it. I get that. But I'm not about that life. I'm just not about that life. If something sucks, I'm going to tell you it sucks, okay? If it's great, I'm going to tell you it's great. And that's it. I'm going to be honest, we need this on YouTube. I don't know why more people don't do this. It drives me nuts. All this passive aggressive sugarcoating, it depends on you. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. So I want to start doing gear reviews. And, the only downfall of my kind of approach is that most people don't want to send me anything because they know if it sucks, I'm going to trash it and it's not going to help their business. So why would they even send me anything? But shout out to AGIProDJ.com. Gotta love them. They sent me 3 controllers to play with, to review, to talk about, and I really appreciate it. They know me, they know my approach, they know how I'm gonna handle this, and they're totally cool with it. So I really appreciate them for sending this out to me. This allows me to really truly make videos like this, and not for nothing, definitely check them out. They're a great family-owned business. So if you're looking to invest in your DJ company and buy more gear and stuff like that, definitely check them out, AGIProDJ.com. But anyway, this is how this review is gonna work. I spent a lot of time with these controllers, so I'm going to give you a full honest reviews. I'm going to tell you what I like about them, what I don't like about them. I'll give you recommendations at the end, which ones I would buy, which ones I wouldn't buy, and let's get the redundant stuff out of the way too. That's another thing YouTubers do I can't stand, okay? I'm not going to talk about anything that's redundant. These controllers all have this stuff in common, and I'm not going to mention it again, okay? Number 1, they're under 300 bucks. Number 2, they're USB powered. Number 3, they all have RCA outs as their main out. Number 4, they all come with Serato DJ Lite for frizzle. Number 5, they're all great for beginner DJs. And number 6, they're all small and cute and adorable and stuff. So those are the common denominators of the 3 mixers I'm about to talk about. I'm not going to mention those again because it makes no point. I'm going to talk about what sets each mixer apart and what sucks about each one. So let's get right into this. So the first controller I want to start with, I don't know. You know what? This is what we'll do. We'll do it in order by price because they're all different price points. So we'll do the cheapest controller to the most expensive controller. That's how we'll do it. Let's get into it. So this is the Numark Mixtrack Pro FX. At $229, this is the least expensive controller out of the 3 we're talking about today. And I gotta admit, I was pretty pleasantly surprised. I really didn't have high expectations of this controller. I didn't. I kind of thought it wasn't gonna be that great, to be honest with you. But playing with it, there's some features that this thing has that really, really stood out for me. So the first thing I want to talk about are these jog wheels. They're a decent size and they're pretty heavy. They feel heavy, and I love that feeling. I guess it depends on what kind of DJ you are, your personal style and all that stuff. But for me personally, I had the easiest time scratching on this controller because of the feel of the jog wheels. They're just heavy, and it mimicked, a heavier jog wheel feels more like a turntable to me. So it's easier for me to manipulate right out the box. And just look at this FX department right here, this little FX space. This is great. It's got the little knobby things just like the S9, which is super familiar, so you can hold them down just to hold the effect or just to turn it on automatically. Individual effect controls. You can basically select which effect you want to do on board. Your wet and dry is right here, and you can also select the beats of your effect. So for echoes in particular, or like a reverb, right, you can on board select how you want to do it, which I don't think any other entry-level controller does, and it's so clutch. When you're mixing live and whatnot, you want to be able to quickly select what beat. You're not just going to use a half echo for everything. Now this controller does use Serato effects like the rest of them, but all the effects are post-fader, which is super, super clutch, and it's something that the effects are useless without them being post-fader. When I say post-fader, it means the effects are still working after you bring your volume fader down. And I also like how you have an independent filter knob here, so you can use it in conjunction with effects. So if you want to play this, right, but you want to echo it out, you can echo it out with a filter and combine effects that way and do different cool things. I like to do that with reverb as well with the filter. It creates cool little sounds and whatnot. So the ability to do those combos on this controller is really, really clutch, super cool thing, and something I didn't expect to see on an entry-level controller. A couple other features I wanted to point out that I liked. You do have Insta doubles buttons. You have the option to change the pitch range, which is very important. So you can change the pitch range from 8% to 16 or even 50. And I also got to point out that I like how all the faders and the knobs and whatnot are pretty much full size, right? Your volume faders, you know, the same thing as on a professional mixer. You got big pitch sliders here. These are literally the same size as like almost on a Technique, I think. You know, the crossfader, everything is all full size. So, you know, I think that's important when it comes to these beginner mixers, because then when you jump on a more professional one, you're going to feel more at home right away because you've already been using, you know, these size faders. Now let's talk about the cons. Gotta admit, I didn't have too many cons about this. I kind of like this controller. Now the feature I can't stand the most and actually pissed me off is this fader cuts feature. I think it's absolutely pointless, and I'll explain why. All it does is make your song stutter, or whatever, your sample or whatever stutter, like almost like you have a bad internet connection or something. It just sounds like shit. So I was like, what's the point of this? So I looked it up online. I couldn't figure out the point of it. And actually it is to learn how to cut with this as a skill, which, oh my God, I can't believe they did this. So essentially how you use this correctly is you do this fader cut thing, right? So you have a scratch sample here. So we have our scratch sample here, then you move the fader cuts, and then you move the scratch sample while pressing down one of these buttons, and then it cuts it up for you. And it seems like each button I go up basically goes up another step. So this is single, double, triple, I guess, or whatever. Now, first of all, the cuts suck. Okay, they sound like shit. I can't get them to sound good. Number two, it doesn't do anything to teach you. You know, they say, oh, well, you know, you listen to the sound, so you try and mimic it with the crossfader. That doesn't make, it sounds like shit as is. If you tried to mimic those sounds, you would sound like shit mimicking them. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense. There's no point in that feature. If you buy this controller, just put a little black piece of tape over top that button. Don't use it. So this is the Pioneer DDJ-SB3 in Silver Fox Edition. I don't know, I made that up. It comes in different colors, whatever. You can get it in black too. But anyway, this is silver. I like the white knobs and all that. Pretty cool controller. 249 bananas for this thing. Now, a couple things I liked about it. It's a familiar layout, right? It's made by Pioneer. Pioneer makes most of the club standard mixers. So, you know, for me, I'm used to these faders, you know, even the crossfader feels a little familiar. How everything's kind of laid out is cool. Now, like the Mixtrack, it does have individual FX controls. They're located on either side over here, so you can see them up there. You could select up to 3 different Serato effects right in Serato, so you can customize this to work with any effect pretty easy, so you can basically change it here. You could do all 3 effects at the same time, 2 at a time, so you can combine them, which is pretty cool. And, you know, just in general, the fact that it's on its own individual channels, you know, you have your own individual wet dry to control the effects, super clutch, you know, I like the location of it up here and stuff, so the effects game is pretty cool, and they do work post fader as well. So pretty cool. Can't beat that. Definitely, it's a great introduction to effects and stuff for beginner DJs. And speaking about beginner DJs, this thing has a couple different features that I think are very cool. The first one is FX fade. So essentially what FX fade does is when you're playing a song, it'll fade it out using different effects. Let me show you what I mean. So what that did is it faded out the song using the high pass filter, right? Right? The next one, low pass. The next one, echo. I like this a lot because it gives you ideas on how to use effects. You know, it does it for you, but at the same time, it kind of gives you good ideas. You know, the way it does it is clean. So if you try and mimic the way it does it, you know, it's a great way to learn. And the same thing goes for the pad scratch. Pad scratch does a couple different things, right? So it shows you different cuts. A lot of basic stuff though, like the main ones you want to learn up front. The first thing it shows you is a regular scratch, right? Right? Then it goes into other stuff, little scribble. So that's like a scribble chirp, different pattern scribble chirp. That's like a scribble with like different stabs. So this is super cool. Now you're probably wondering why I hated on the Numark scratch feature, but I like the Pioneer scratch feature. Let's switch cams and I'll tell you why. To explain why I think this Pioneer scratch feature is so cool, I want to tell you a little story. So I play piano. I can't read music. I'm not like classically trained, but I'm pretty solid at it. I'm not going to lie. I can play Beethoven. I can play Journey. I can play some John Legend stuff. I can hold my own. I can play like, you know, some shit. Now I know. Who cares if I can play piano, right? You're like, well, why are you telling me this? Hear me out. How I learned how to play piano is when I was 8 years old. My mom got me a keyboard. I think it was for Christmas or my birthday or something like that. Regardless, she got me a keyboard. And the cool feature of this keyboard is it would play songs, and it would play full songs, like two-handed, like legit songs, and it would play them while lighting up the keys. So you could see like what notes were being played. And I literally learned how to play piano by following the lit up keys. Well, this is how I look at the Pioneer scratch feature, because, you know, it doesn't just do it for you. I mean, obviously you hold down a button and it does a scratch for you, but the cool thing about it is it does it with whatever song's in the deck, right? So you load a song and it does it with that song, and it literally does it like on the Serato screen. So you see the scratches happening. So it allows you to watch that scratch being done correctly. Then you can go and mimic it right after. And it's a great practice tool. It just makes learning how to scratch so much less intimidating to me, you know? So I'm a big fan of this feature. I think that so many DJs will utilize this feature to learn how to scratch in the same way I utilize my keyboard to learn how to play piano. Now let's talk about the cons of this thing. So I gotta admit, you know, out of the three I'm talking about today, this is the smallest, the lightest. It feels the most like a toy, to be honest with you. It's like really lighted. The construction's not great. I wouldn't kick this down a flight of steps and expect it to work again. But it works fine. I'm just saying it just doesn't feel, you know, expensive. It feels like it costs $249. And another thing that absolutely sucks about this controller is, if you could see over here, the mic volume is in the back where your mic input is. And that essentially, so you have to set it and forget it. You can't really adjust it. It's super hard to adjust while you're DJing. So that's going to be a pain in the ass if you're using this live. But again, these controllers are essentially for practicing at home and learn how to DJ in the first place. So, you know, I'm not going to fault Pioneer for it, but that does suck. Now, last but not least, this is the Hercules Impulse 500. Clocking in at $299. It is the most expensive controller we're going to talk about in this video. A couple things I really liked about this mixer. It's got colored pads, right? It's the only one out of the three has color pads. It's got a vinyl feeling platter, right? The platters are kind of light, but like it has that vinyl feel almost like a CDJ. So it's a better feel, probably the best feel out of the three. The mic control is on board here with a volume and a high and a low, which is super clutch. So this is the, you know, this you can actually use out and, you know, adjust your mic the right way and, you know, actually sound good. Whereas the other ones, you just had a volume and that was it. It also has this beat match guide thing, which I've never seen on a controller before. It's definitely a Hercules thing that they kind of invented. And what it does is when you turn this on, the arrows will illuminate to tell you kind of where to adjust the pitch fader, so you're matching the BPMs on either track. And it'll also illuminate these little arrows on either side to align your beats, so you know whether to push it forward if this is going, or push it backward this is going, to help you kind of align the beats and get your beat matching on point. Cool feature, definitely cool. I don't think it's necessary for the tempo sliders. I mean, all you got to do is tell any person just like, hey, listen, match the tempos. I mean, that's easy to do. You don't need a, you know, arrow to tell you to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, but having the beat align feature over here is pretty cool, because when you're starting out, you know, it's definitely hard to like kind of remember this goes forward, this goes backwards, and to kind of do it on the fly and keep the beats in sync and all that good stuff. You know, it definitely helps out with that. In addition to the beat match guide, it also has this little energy button thing. And this button just like, it's a knob that controls Serato. That's all that is. But it lights up around it and it essentially counts the beats for you. So like every one is going to be red, and then 2, 3, and 4 will be blue. So if you're having trouble counting beats and stuff, it does count the beats for you, which is kind of cool. So see, so every one, bloop, bloop. So that's kind of cool, you know, if you're having trouble counting beats, you know, you're not like musically inclined, you're getting into DJing, that'll definitely help you out, you know, to learn how to count bars and all that stuff. So that's definitely a cool and unique feature I've never seen before in my entire life. Now let's talk about the cons. I gotta admit, you know, for being the most expensive controller in this video, I found the most cons with this thing. There's so many little things that just drive me nuts about this controller, and I'm gonna tell you all about them. Number one, some features only work with DJ Juice or DJuiced or whatever they call it. But it's stupid because, of course, they're forcing you to use their program if you want to utilize certain features. Like these colored pads, only in the program. It's not going to work with DJ Lite. The slip and the quantize features, only going to work in the program. I had to switch cams for this one. It really bothers me when manufacturers make their own DJ program, because it's all a gimmick. They do this in an attempt to get you hooked to their program, so now you are married to their products, right? If you like DJuiced, if you like to DJ with DJuiced, well, now you better buy all Hercules products. Now when you upgrade to a pro mixer, it better be a Hercules mixer, or else you're not going to be able to use DJuiced. Do the programs work great? Probably, I guess, but would I trust it? Like, has it been around a long time? Would I trust it with a first dance song at a wedding? No! And there's so many disadvantages to this. If you're stuck using DJs, that means you're stuck using Hercules hardware. That means if you ever get a big opportunity to DJ in a club somewhere, you gotta drag in a Hercules controller and you're gonna look stupid. You know, you're gonna have to use your own stuff wherever. You're not gonna be able to plug into anybody else's stuff. It's not universal, you know? Numark tried it with their Numark Q system or whatever, if you guys remember that. Ew! More of the story is DJs or DJ Oost or whatever it's called is stupid, and I highly recommend you don't use it. Another thing that drives me nuts about this thing are the faders. They're short faders. They're small in general. The crossfader is very small as far as width. You know, the volume faders are very small as far as like length up here, right? They're just small, so you don't have a lot of room to play with. The faders themselves are really, really short, way shorter than like a standard fader. So if you learn how to mix on this thing and you learn how to cut or do anything, any scratching on this thing, it's gonna be 10 times harder, in my opinion, learning how to scratch with this thing with such small faders, because you just have less room to work with altogether, so you have to be that much more precise. Terrible, 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 terrible design. Like, look at the tempo control faders. Look how tiny these are. What are you gonna do with this? Well, let me look at the bright side here. It's definitely cool looking controller. It comes with the coolest USB. Look at this thing. I mean, that's a pretty cool USB to come with, you know what I mean? And look at this, guys. It has little feet. The little feet come out, look, see? And when they come out, they got a little light on them. See? How cool are these feet? So it hovers off the ground, and it's got little ambient light on the bottom, which is kind of cool. Now, the ambient lighting isn't that like bright though, because it's USB powered at the end of the day, so none of this stuff's gonna be that bright, but it's still a cool little concept, you know. If you're DJing in pitch black, you know, your controller will look pretty damn cool. And I gotta admit, as far as like master outs and everything, they have every entry-level controller beat. You have an unbalanced dual 1/4 inch out here, the standard RCA, your mic is a 1/4 inch, and also has an RCA aux in and a 3.5 millimeter or headphone aux in, which is super cool because that means this will be the only controller out of the 3 we're talking about today where you can use it in, you know, conjunction with other hardware. You know, you can hook anything up to this thing, which is super cool, and it makes it more kind of versatile in that aspect. All right, so now we looked at all 3 of these controllers. Let's put a little cherry on top. I'm gonna order these controllers from worst to best, and I'll give you my reasons why. Coming in 3rd place is the Hercules Impulse 500. Kind of ironic that the most expensive out of the 3 is the one I like the least, but I don't know. I mean, it just sucks. Look, to me, when Hercules designed this thing, they focused all their time and energy on gimmick features. Like, they wanted to have the features that, like, if you're a beginner DJ and you don't know anything about anything, you know, you'd look at the commercial for this and be like, whoa, that's so cool, I want that. If Hercules really gave a shit about people learning how to DJ, they would have taken the money it cost them to make those little feats with the little lights underneath, and they would have put it into full-size faders, you know? Where a DJ is actually gonna get used to real faders. You're not playing with these little tiny little toy things. Like, they literally made a toy controller with some fancy features that they can easily market to, like, you know, your mom and dad that are shopping for you for Christmas, and you said you wanted to be a DJ, so like, it's like, oh wow, this looks like the coolest controller, so we're gonna get this one. But the reality is, this controller is a pig with lipstick. Coming in number 2 is the Numark Mixtrack Pro FX. Out of all the controllers, this one surprised me. I actually really like that. If I was gonna pick one controller for me to mix with tonight at a gig, like if I had to choose between these 3, it would be the Numark. I felt the most comfortable on it. The heavy platters felt good. Faders are all full size. The effects in the middle with the little knobs like the S9. I mean, it's set up like a pro level mixer, but in like a beginner form. And coming in as the cheapest one at $229, great deal. Highly recommend. And coming in at number 1 is the DDJ-SB3. I love this little controller. I think it's great. I think it was really close between the Pioneer and the Numark, but the thing that put the Pioneer over the top for me was the Fade FX and the scratch features. As I said earlier, those features are incredibly useful for beginner DJs. I think like they are game changers. I am such a believer in them, and for that reason, I'm not lying, straight up, if I had a child and he or she wanted to be a DJ, I would 100% buy them the SB3. Now, if you guys want more information about these controllers or you're looking to buy one, I have a link for each one of them in the description, so check that out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all of you. If you found this video useful, definitely hit the like button down there. It'll help my algorithms and all that, and you know. And if you're not subscribed, join the squad, people.